Thank you. And of course, you always want to respond to such effusions with alerting the audience nothing was said under oath. My most recent book, American Empire, I think, tries to trace the psychology of empire that underwrites all the pathologies that John has enumerated. And I think you should be riveted in your passion to try to rectify our plunge from a republic to empire by thinking of the following hypothetical. Suppose tomorrow President Barack Obama commands primetime television. He says, secret intelligence alerts me that Osama bin Laden now has a weapon of mass destruction. We confront the greatest danger, even a greater danger than World War II, with the Luftwaffe and the zero airplanes. I'm suspending the Congress of the United States for your safety. I'm suspending civilian law and replacing it with military law because that's the only way I can make you safe. I'm doing this very reluctantly, but this is the only way we'll be able to preserve the country. And with that announcement, he says, and tomorrow, I will start issuing edicts rather than legislation because we can no longer afford with this terrifying danger abroad. It's more than the 1% formula of Dick Cheney to accept the customary way in which we've governed the country. If that happened, how many here think the American people in Congress say, we're impeaching President Obama tomorrow? That's simply not acceptable. We will not give up our freedom for this pledge of safety and magnifying the danger. We'd rather be free and accept risk than be vassals and be absolutely safe. I think you all would agree nothing would happen. People would
I don't agree with you.
There would be some
I object.
Why don't you save for the question? My view is that the Congress would not respond in a way that ultimately the people in the Congress did with regard to President Nixon's abuses. I'm in Washington every day. I was horrified to learn in January in a debate with John Yoo that when the war resolutions for Afghanistan and Iraq were at issue, Congress insisted the executive branch had to draft the language, and when the bills were shopped in Congress, the members were angry that they were being forced to vote. They said, you need to go to war on yourself. Don't give us any responsibility in the matter. This is where we are as a country, in my judgment. Remember, Tacitus wrote, as the Roman Republic descended to the Roman Empire, the worst crimes were dared by few, willed by more, tolerated by all. Tolerated by all. And if we can think of where we are since 9/11, just enumerate the particular presidential usurpations that have occurred, open and notorious, without any serious repudiation by Congress of the American people. Let's start with the one that's the most dramatic. The president has announced he has authority unilaterally to place American citizens on assassination hit lists if he thinks, in his judgment, they're an imminent danger to the United States. And that kind of authority is beyond judicial review. It would be a state secret to try to have the judiciary probe into whether or not that was bona fide decision or whether it violated due process. We have also a situation where we have perpetual war and it's global. The authorization to use military force was the first time in history that we declared war against a tactic, which can never be eliminated. So that meant, by definition, the war is perpetual. There has been no one in Washington, D.C. who's even conceived of a formula for determining the war is over. The second element that was revolutionary about this is because the tactic can be used anywhere. It meant the entire globe, the entire planet is a battlefield where the president is authorized to use military force or impose military law, including in this very room here. And that insofar as we have any liberty at all, it's at the president's indulgence. He's decided he doesn't want to assert that kind of military projection as he wishes. We have open and notorious concessions by former president and vice president. They authorized waterboarding, the definition of torture as we used in prosecuting Japanese soldiers in World War II. And what happens? The President of the United States says, I just want to look forward, not backward. Well, Mr. President, you attended Harvard Law School like I did. All criminal law is looking backward because we don't prosecute things that haven't happened yet, called ex post facto law. I mean, it's utter fatuous argument. Oh, it's politically inconvenient. Well, there's a pardon power if you think that it's being politically disruptive or convulsive to go forward with the criminal prosecution. President Ford thought that was true with Richard Nixon after he was ousted from office, but at least he had the courage to pardon the president. He didn't say, well, covers up obstruction of justice, who cares? Politically inconvenient, we'll blink our eyes at. Ordinarily, we find that's the problem with foreign countries that we're trying to rectify, including Afghanistan. And the response has been very weak. We have a president who flouted the Foreign Intelligence and Surveillance Act for almost 6 years, intercepting the emails and phone calls of American citizens on American soils without any warrant whatsoever. A criminal violation. Blinked at. Yeah, we don't want to prosecute it. Congress doesn't ask for it. The successor president doesn't ask for it. Well, you know, as long as you have national security claim, you know, the law doesn't matter. Which is an outrageous, I think, degeneration from the very baptism I had in Washington, D.C., which was Watergate. We had a president one time who said, the president does it, it's legal. I can have burglaries of Daniel Ellsberg psychiatrists. That can be legal. And the American people and the Congress said, you know, that's not right. We will impeach you. And he ultimately was driven from office. President Nixon. President does it, doesn't make it legal. The whole idea of the Nixon tapes case, and even the Clinton Paula Jones case, the president is not above the law, but today the president is above the law. President is above the law. We have presidents who state they have the right to tell their White House staff they do not need to respond to congressional subpoenas. They say, we don't want oversight. You can't look at what we're doing. We are them. It's like Louis XIV, the state, I am the state. And does Congress respond like they did with Nixon when he flouted their subpoena in the impeachment inquiry? That's an impeachable offense. The congressional oversight power is dead if you can ignore a subpoena. No. Please, well, if the members won't, the staff won't testify, maybe we can get somebody in the business community or who will know something to ask questions of. And the authority clearly is there to impose impeachment, contempt of court, fine the people who don't appear, and things like that. What happens? Nothing. That's why Congress is in the total dark. You know, the members on the Intelligence Committee told me they learned more from WikiLeaks than they learned in all the briefings in the prior 5 years. You have to have WikiLeaks for oversight? You know, that is a disaster. That is a disaster. And all of these claims made by the president, usurpations, Congress has acquiesced. And we now live, basically, in a situation where all our liberties are dependent upon an indulgent president. The legal architecture of tyranny is already there, even though it's true Obama has asserted it to the maximum. You know, just like when Hammurabi announced his code, unilaterally. Well, you know, he could take it back or not, but he was benevolent, so people did protest at the time. But that's not what the United States was made for. We the people, the three most important words in the United States Constitution. We the people are sovereign. The power belongs to us. We decide what the government can do and what not. And now it's the other way around. The government decides everything. And we the people, generally speaking, are very indifferent and lethargic with regard to defending our rights. And the whole nature, as Edward R. Murrow pointed out, if you have a people of sheep, you will get a government of wolves. So the Founding Fathers knew. Constant vigilance. Never, never trust government. Because their motives are virtually invariably ulterior, and it's to stay in power. That's the kind of people who gravitate to Washington, D.C. They covet power for the sake of power. And that means that you have to have the checks and balances and public responsiveness call these people to account. If the system is to continue to work as it should, as a republic. But we are well beyond the republic as envisioned by the Founding Fathers. And let me explain, I think, in a very easy way, why the culture has turned the constitutional philosophy on its head. The The Founding Fathers believed that liberty and freedom was the rule and government encroachments were the exception. And therefore, if evidence and experience was inconclusive as to whether or not some government investigative tool, some oversight, some of the surveillance that John was describing, if the evidence was inconclusive, that really wasn't shown, was indispensable to preserving the sovereignty, the default position is freedom and individual rights, not government authority. Now it's the other way around. The government can see, well, the body scanner in the next century might pick up one person who is stupid enough or clumsy enough to come and walk through the screen with a weapon there, then we'll use the screen on 1 billion people. It totally inverts the philosophy of life in government that made this country distinct. It was our signature. The individual is the center of the universe, not the government. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and securing those for individuals was the sole and exhaustive purposes of government, not building empires, running around the world and trying to tell other people how to live, even if we knew how to do it. Even if we knew how to do it. And John quoted Dwight D. Eisenhower, but earlier on, far before President Eisenhower, John Quincy Adams had it right. He was the 6th President of the United States. He was speaking then as Secretary of State. July 4th to the Congress, 1821. We could become the dictatress of the world. We would destroy the Republic in the process. We give and urge liberty and support everywhere. We fight only for our own. Because the process of military projection concentrates all power in the President. Due process, the most important cornerstone of civilization, is trashed. It's the presumption of guilt before innocence. People, like today, where we have the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee just totally distraught that a jury in New York City may have acquitted somebody accused of a terrorism crime. And he said, that's a miscarriage of justice. In our, post 9/11, we don't permit not guilty verdicts if you're not accused of terrorism. That's how far we are from dishonoring, into dishonoring due process of law. So what's to be done? One, we need now to challenge the conventional orthodoxies that stifle the debate, I think, that we're having here today. That, well, there's such a danger abroad, we have to give up all of our freedoms and individual liberties, otherwise there'll be a caliphate in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. We need to stand up and tell our elected representatives and write to our media, we would rather take some risk and be free than to make us totally and completely secure and be serfs and have a huge, huge government. We understand some risk is the oxygen of a Republican form of government. It is the oxygen, and we have to accept some. We're not foolish about it. But the only way you can end risk in toto is to put everybody in prison, which is ridiculous.
Or under surveillance.
Or under surveillance. An option. And the second thing that we have to explain to our leaders, if you refuse to honor your oath, which is to uphold and defend the Constitution, which means impeaching people who commit impeachable offenses, we vote you out of office. The process is more important than anything. We need members of Congress, like at one time they did with President Nixon. We will need members saying, we will impeach you if you flout a congressional subpoena. We will impeach you if you go to war without authorization from Congress. We will impeach you if you claim that you can just assassinate an American citizen without any due process, without any warrant at all. Think of this. Think of this surreal element of our current system. In order for the president to intercept your email or phone calls, he needs a warrant. But he can kill you without anything. That's really quite something. Franz Kafka, Alice in Wonderland. I'm not sure where it belongs. In the long run, I think it's the culture that will turn this country back from the ruination of empire towards a republic or not. The members of Congress, our political institutions reflect the values, the ambitions, the goals, the vision of the people of the United States. Emerson wrote, history is biography. History is what we do. It may not succeed. All great programs of reform at the outset look hopeless. When William Lloyd Garrison started as liberator in Boston in 1831, people said, you're crazy to try to end slavery. All the economic forces are against you. All the political forces are against you. He was tarred and feathered and driven out. He was there in 1865 when the 13th Amendment prohibited slavery. Those involved in the women's suffrage movement, those at Seneca Falls in 1840, you'll never be able to get women's suffrage. And Susan B. Anthony was actually arrested and tried for the audacity of voting. You know, can imagine a worse crime than that. But there was persistence. So we can never give up simply because it seems like we're counting Mount Everest and we're at the bottom. It has to begin somewhere. It should begin with us. Thanks.